Hello and welcome to Bastionland Broadcasting, where tonight we are trying out a game that I've been working on, not quite finishing, and I'm still not quite sure where this project sits with me. So this is very much me testing out something that this is a great start, isn't it? I'm like saying straight away, this is going to be shit. So let me start again. It is a project that I've been excited to have been working on. But as you can hear, I'm kind of like a bit unsure about it. But I thought it could be fun to do it as a bit of a live test. It is something I've tested before last year in a bit of a different form. But that game is Ask the Stars. In this case, Ask the Stars Intergalactic. So Ask the Stars started life as this table here, which is a 2d12 table, which can be used to ask yes or no questions, giving you a very standard yes, yes, but no sort of spread of answers. But more interestingly, it can be used to give you, it's very much like the Spark Tail was in Electric Bastion, and it can give you a sign and a position. So for instance, if I roll a 3 and a 7, I have the cage colliding, and the cage represents protection and obligation, and colliding represents change and violence. And it is intended to feel very much like that. These kind of oracles that you get in games like Iron Sworn, and the other big inspiration is like tarot. Like I got given a pack of tarot cards last Christmas as a bit of a joke, and I really sort of found it quite fascinating reading about them and sort of the idea of using them as kind of prompts for games. But I wanted something a bit more table ready, if you like. So we have this kind of 2d12 table. So what did we have? We had the cage colliding. So this could represent like protection and obligation with change and violence. So it could be like violence in the name of protection. It could be someone's obligation is changing. So someone who is obligated to someone else, there's been a change of situation. It could literally be a cage colliding. So it could be some sort of cage-like structure colliding into something else. It's left open to interpretation. And we're going to come back to the mechanics of this because I had this table and I was sort of messing around with it for, dare I invoke the name, Intergalactic Bastionland, which is kind of on the right far back burner at the minute. But then I thought, well, this is kind of cool in its own right. I feel like I'm enjoying it. And then towards the end of last year, when I came across 2400, I thought this kind of format, I'm not going to do a whole review of 2400 again. I've done a whole video about them, but they're great. This kind of leaflet format, I thought this could be a good way to use that kind of Ask the Stars format. So the idea is to have a very, very simple system, but it's simple, but it's also kind of challenging in its own way, which we'll get into. A very simple system, a nice cover, and then 2 pages of like guidance and content for a particular type of game. In this case, a sci-fi game. And this is like the kind of the core module that has making a character, dealing with some technology, travel and business, fuel, the very basics of traveling around the galaxy doing jobs, basically. I have since expanded this with a planetary module, which has the same exactly the same content on the back, because I want this to be kind of the core of the game. But the content in the middle is different. So this has got generating worlds, which we did look a little bit at last week's video. And then the new one this week is mercantile, which deals more with like trade, markets, meeting with trade. It sort of zooms in on a particular style of play. But the intention of these is that you can kind of run it with just this one leaflet. And I've got some other modules coming. The next one is going to be something to do with like injuries and a bit more detail on combat if you want to dig into that. And then that's the kind of the big 4 that I need. And then there's a few I've got in the pipeline. But those are the sort of the big 4 modules that I think I need for this to kind of hold together. So we're going to roll a character. And we're playing it solo. But, I mean, it's kind of designed that you could play it as a solo game. But to be clear, I'm kind of designing this as... I would intend to run this with a group. It's not sort of designed primarily as a solo game. But because it's so early on, I don't want to subject a group to it yet. Because I want to sort of get a feel for the mechanics before I do that. So this is kind of a preliminary solo dive, really. So, characters. Any characters you're rolling for this game, you either roll on a table or ask the stars. And every character begins with 3 resources, 2 objectives, and 1 problem, which we've got over here. The resources can be anything from skills, followers, gear, etc. Again, one of the things that I liked about Ironsworn was that you had these, I think they're called assets in that game, and they can be anything from like skills to pets or special abilities. Objectives, it's described in very short terms here, but I'm leaning into the idea that I've been playing around with of self-assessed objectives that have no reward. So it's weird because there's so much of game design, especially RPG design, people really get honed in on rewarding the players for a certain type of thing. And I've never really bought into that. I think kind of, for me, the rewards that I enjoy in a game aren't necessarily like the leveling up type things. So having an objective and no reward, I'm hoping that there's a lot of psychology about it that I'm not going to claim to be an expert on, but my gut feeling is sometimes if you have an objective with no reward, it's almost more rewarding, which doesn't make any sense. It feels less like you're doing it to check a box or to complete a job. You're doing it because it's your objective and you know that's what you need to do. And then 1 problem which is not easily solved. So, we can ask the stars. So we could just roll on here and use this as inspiration. We could ask some yes or no questions. If we do ask some yes or no questions, we're always rolling 2d12. And we have to decide ahead of time, is the answer likely to be yes? If it is, we take the high die. If it's not, we take the low die. Now, I'll come back to that because that's something that is... I'm not sure yet whether that's something that I really like or something that is like just too silly, because it forces you to make a decision. You can't just say it's a 50-50 chance. Either you as the solo player or the GM has to make the call and say this is likely or this is unlikely. And you have to come to that decision, which I think can be a good thing. And it can create some interesting problem solving because you have to push into a situation where you have the advantage. Otherwise, you have a definite disadvantage. There's no kind of default, well, I'll just try a 50-50 shot. But because we have a table to roll on up here, we're actually going to roll our crew up here. So it's going to be a crew of 1 character, but we'll use one of our resources to make like another member of the ship. So just so we're not on our own. So the crew serve aboard the same ship under a captain. So that will be us. Typical other roles are engineer, pilot, navigator, and doctor. So I guess we'll have like, well, we'll work it out, but we're going to have people doing multiple roles essentially. But we'll need someone to be the captain, someone to be an engineer and a pilot at least. And in addition to their own, each character describes 1 resource that they have added to the ship itself. So that will be like a part of the ship. So we have our person. We're just going to roll 2d12. 4 and 8. An honourable noble. That was not at all what I was envisioning. So our character is an honourable noble. And what's their style? So again, we roll 2d12. We have 9 and 9. A chrome uniform. Oh, it's a uniform and chrome. So I'm seeing like a pilot uniform and like a chrome, like a sort of Daft Punk style, like chrome helmet. So it's sounding a little bit kind of pulpy now, right now, because we've got this honourable noble character. but the assumption is that, you know, the front cover states humble ship, limitless freedom, endless problems. So why is a honourable noble out here? So I'm already getting ideas that we were honourable. We were like too honourable for our own good. So we kind of got thrown out to here. So let's look at our ship. Well, before we do that, we'll come up with some resources, I think. Well, we said that our first resource was going to be like an ally, like another member of the crew. So we'll roll that. So we have 10 and 11, which is a humble drifter. So if we're an honourable noble and we're going into space with a humble drifter, we'll come up with a name for them. Listen, people who are asking about where you can get this, by the way, you can go to bit.ly/askthestars, I think. If you go to bastionland.com, there'll be a link to it somewhere. I should have got the URL ahead of time, but yeah, bit.ly/askthestars should get you there. I will need, in return though, chat, I do need some help with names. So I need a name for this noble, and I need a name for our the drifter who's accompanying them. So what are the resources will this person have? I feel like they might have like high society contacts would make sense with the noble, but it doesn't really work. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, I know it's like a massive cliche, but we are going to have fencing as one of our skills. I do like Lionel. Arcbricker's come in with Lionel. And I'll take Punished Jimble says Harlock for the humble drifter. Fencing is kind of boring. You know what? I'm going to slightly lean into the fact that this sounds a little bit pulpy. I feel like this character, at least, sees themselves as like a pulp hero. Maybe they're like a kind of Robin Hood, space Robin Hood, they see themselves. But I think the world itself is still going to be quite gritty, and they're going to feel slightly out of place, which feels kind of funny to me. So I'll give them swashbuckling and fancy laser pistol. Yeah. See, the thing is, resources doesn't need to be the be and end all here. There's a lot of blank space left in this game to assume that you might be able to get hold of other equipments. So the guidance needs to be expanded, but it kind of assumes this is like your special gear and your special skills that you have. So the fact that I don't have piloting in here doesn't mean that I can't pilot the ship. It just means that it's not like one of his specialities. Yeah, you could have a contact as well. You know what? I am going to go for some kind of laser device. You know what? I'm just going to put, and we can come back to it. We can work out what experimental laser device means when we get to it. Now, one thing I will add is that one of the things that I'm kind of trying out with this system is this. I don't know if you know I've heard it called the iron triangle. You'll see like a chart for like product development or something like that, where you'll say it'll be a triangle and it'll say your product can be cheap, well made, or you can have it fast, and you can only pick two. You can't have all three. So basically, whatever you make is going to be either expensive, low quality, or slow to make. There have been lots of expansions and variations on that. I suspect it's probably kind of outdated nowadays. I know that one of the ways that you can break it is by just having no ethics. But I've kind of expanded it into 5 sort of binary choices. So you can choose 3 good things, but you have to take 2 bad things for your tech. So our experimental laser device, and this is a little bit, I wonder if this is like a little bit too crunchy. Like you could strip it down and say, well, just pick 2 good things and 1 bad thing. But I kind of like having to work your way down the list. So this laser device, it's obviously advanced. And I feel like it's versatile because we don't know what it does. So I bet it can do all sorts of laser-related stuff. And you know what? I'm going to say it's intuitive. No, I'm going to say it's intuitive, but it's unreliable. So erratic, sorry. And it was expensive. So if this gets stolen, we're going to struggle to get a new one. So we don't have to like address this list every time we use this item. But it just means that there's talk in chat about which ones we should pick. I'm not going to agonize over it because I feel like if it's experimental, then maybe it should be complicated rather than intuitive. But maybe it's like it's the I'm such an old man. I was going to say it's like the iPod of it's the iMac of laser devices. It's like designed to be very user friendly. But when it goes wrong, we're in trouble, and it's going to be expensive to get it fit. You could absolutely change it to having 2 benefits and 3 drawbacks, which would be kind of funny. And yeah, absolutely. So we have our resources here. And don't forget, we are going to pick one more when we get to our ship. So we also have rules that tech that's poorly serviced or used in an improper way risks breakage or a catastrophic failure. So I've always been reading through Classic Traveller, and there's lots of nice little rules in there, like the whole using... So unrefined fuel is quite easy to get, but it means you risk a misjump. And I wanted to try and like condense the sort of the principles of some of those cool ideas into just guidelines like this, so that if you follow that, then it should follow that you can get some shitty cheap fuel that's gonna risk a catastrophic failure. Most weapons and armor are designed to excel at a particular purpose with a specific type of target and are significantly less effective outside of that. So that's how I avoid my giant weapons matrix. Let's get our ship. We're gonna need names for the ship pretty soon, so start thinking. So we have 8 and 11. So it's a homely bird. So it's kind of like style and shape. So our ship. So I'm going to put like homely bird. I don't mean it's literally a bird, but kind of like bird shaped. So like the classic kind of I guess like Klingon bird of prey kind of shape, but it's homely. So when I think of like a homely ship, I immediately think of like the Outer Wilds, where you've got this. It's like made out of wood, isn't it? And it feels like you're inside like a shed or a log cabin. So I'm getting that kind of vibe, but kind of like it's so maybe it was quite a kind of sleek military like ship that's just been made into like a home. So Lionel's kind of decked it out with whatever he could scramble from his, because I think we're leaning into this idea of him running away from his previous life, and he's kind of decked out this ship to try and be like his home. Call of the Void, we'll go for that. Technoscald can have credit for the Call of the Void. So now that we've used this prompt, we don't actually need to keep track of all this because we've got it in our head now. The thing that I note down here, when you're asking the stars, it's easy to get hung up on like the results of the table, but it's not about the result on the table. The result on the table is just one step to get you towards the actual truth. And once you get to the truth, if you look back and say, oh no, actually the table was saying something different, it doesn't matter because you've got to that new truth now. So yeah, these are just sparks. Your interpretation becomes the truth. But we've got a picture of that ship in our head, and that's what matters. So we might do some yes or no questions in a minute just to kind of help flesh out this character a bit. Or we need to add a resource to the ship. So, let's ask the stars. So I'm going to roll 2d12. I have 7 and 8. So the child burning. So the child is learning and greed. Burning is honesty and pride. So kind of greed and pride makes me think that even though he's kind of like a Robin Hood figure, maybe he is kind of vain as well. And again, this is a good example because you can see vanity comes up later on the table. But if that's where we've ended up, then it doesn't matter how we got there. It's just it's about getting you to that destination. So what would the ship have? I was imagining like I think it's going to have like a luxury, like a lodge, which sounds ridiculous. Like a what's the word? Like a luxury lounge. Yeah, so it's got a luxury lounge in there. That's kind of like, as much as he might be a Robin Hood figure, he's also living the high life a little bit. So we're going to ask some yes or no questions because we're kind of done with the tables, I think, because the objectives and the problem entirely left up to us. So I think the problem is, well, we'll get back to the problem. Our objectives. So these can be like super specific that you could complete in one session, or they could be like long-term life goals that you're never going to actually achieve in the scope of a game. I haven't fit it in here because I'm so low on space, but I kind of wanted to say that if one is completed, you just create a new one. You should always have two objectives on the go. And again, it's inspired by what I've done with the open strategy games and like the Matrix games, where you're if you design really good little objectives, it kind of just makes the play interesting almost on its own, and especially if they almost contradict each other, so you kind of can't focus on both at once. So I think one of his base objectives is to retain his life of luxury. And be a hero of the people, of the downtrodden. Yeah, so I like it this way around because then they kind of more directly contradict each other. So he wants to be a hero of the downtrodden. He's got this romantic idea of being this Robin Hood style figure, but he also wants to retain his life of luxury. Now, if I choose in the course of the game to ignore that, then I don't lose anything. I don't fail to level up, but you want a challenge, don't you? You don't want the game to be completely easy. So you are going to have to there's going to be times when you have to choose between these two. And if you're the kind of player that would say like, well, why should I do them? I don't care. This is the point of the game. This is the goal of the game. I think I used in the open strategy game, which used a similar kind of very open objective system. There's a phrase in there, the goal of the game is to achieve your objectives. The point of the game is to create a credible narrative or something like that. I did steal that phrase from somewhere, I should confess. But yeah, it's the goal of the game this is how you win. And RPGs are weird. It's not like one person wins all the time. Sometimes you kind of win, sometimes you don't. But yeah, I've said enough about that. And then what's our problem? So the problem needs to be not easily solved. And my kind of assumption with it was that it was something that's giving you trouble like right now. So let's roll 3 and 5. The cage, which is protection and obligation. And again, we could just take this literally as a cage. 5 is rooted, stability and plenty. So protection and stability and plenty. So plenty is kind of like leaning into this idea of him living the life of luxury. An obligation and plenty. See, my first thought was that maybe he was under some sort of protection from his like noble background, but he has maybe that has like disappeared. Under house arrest, Thunder Ducky said. Yeah, the cage rooted suggests like being. You know, we could just have that he's literally in prison. So let's just go that straightforward. The ship, the Call of the Void, has been impounded. That's our problem. And when you're running the game, which in this case I'm going to be running and playing, the point of the game is to create evocative places with time-sensitive problems that lack an obvious solution. So the Call of the Void has been impounded is not necessarily time-sensitive. So it's been impounded, awaiting destruction. So yeah, we have our sort of start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a few yes or no questions to kind of flesh this out, and then we'll sort of get onto the sort of the starting situation. So I'm going to ask a question. Harlock, the humble drifter. Is Harlock a member of my crew? And do we think that's likely? I think in this situation, it sounds like it's likely that we would have somebody else on the crew. So I roll 2 dice. The highest is 11. So the answer is yes. They are a member of the crew. Are they an engineer? And I think, again, this is likely based on... I can't see our character being especially engineering based. Yeah, we get another yes. So Harlock is our engineer. And... so he's a drifter, and he's humble drifter, engineer. And give me like a visual detail about Harlock, and I'm just going to ask the stars. So we have 8 and 1. The Traveller Rising. So he's a Traveller Rising. I'm just going to straight up say that he's just like a big guy. So like he's a drifter. He's a big, tall guy. He has to like crouch under the pipes in the engine room to fix things, and he gets all the messy work done while we're sat with our flight uniform and chrome helmet in the cockpit. So before we jump into like the starting situation, I want to really quickly go over the guidelines for like how to actually run the game. So like I say, it's heavily based on 2400. I want to give a shout out to another game that I'd seen this game, but I hadn't actually read it. But I saw it ages ago and then forgot to actually look at it. And then I recently was reminded of it after I'd written these Ask the Stars modules. And that is Any Planet is Earth by Jim Parkin. And it's kind of... the mechanics are very different, but it's kind of a similar thing where it feels like it's an attempt to like cram Traveller down into something very rules light. And it's got some really interesting design. It's got lots of nice sort of maze rat style tables. I feel like I'm going to do a video about this another time, but I wanted to give a shout out to Any Planet is Earth, which you can get on itch.io. But for now, what do we do when we come to an uncertain situation? So there is a straight up like checklist down here because the rules are so light. I wanted the procedures to be really kind of robust and like almost taking inspiration from 2 places. One of them is Blades in the Dark has the whole position and effect system, which I have my things that I like and my things that I don't like about Blades in the Dark, but I really like how it sort of frames those 2 things and how it frames thinking about the situation at hand in quite a specific way before you roll any dice. The other one was, weirdly, this is an relatively old game, Troll Babe, which I'd always ignored when I heard people talking about it because the name sounded stupid and the theme is kind of dumb, but dumb, in a good way. But that game is a super simple game mechanically, but a lot of the book is just dedicated to setting stakes, which I think is quite an interesting way of looking at things. So when there is risk and danger, you just work down this list. And I tried so hard to make this spell something out, but it didn't. And I tried so hard to make it into a 3 bullet point list, but I didn't. So you know me, if I can make it into a 3 bullet point list, I would. So The fact that I haven't means that this must be a really important list for me to have left these as they are. So it's also drawing inspiration from my Matrix Games open strategy game thing, where you need to say, what are you actually trying to do? And then, what leverage do you have? What makes it possible? And if outcome and cost are assured, go to impact. So again, this bit's kind of taking inspiration from 2400, because that kind of, to me, introduced me to this idea of like, well, maybe there's a cost to this action and you just pay the cost and it happens. And it sounds obvious, but it's nice to have it kind of set in there. So if it's not, if outcome and stake are not assured, we just carry on. So stakes, what's at risk? If there's no risk, then there's no roll. Just make it happen. Edge, decide which side has the edge. So this is whether you're going to take the high die or the low die from the roll. If you have the edge, it means you are going to take the high die. If you don't, it means you're going to take the low d12. In complex cases, compare the single biggest factor on each side. So if I'm trying to stab this big space T-Rex and I say, yeah, I've got knife skills and I'm well fed and I've got the high ground and my knife has been sharpened and the wind is behind me. Those are all like small factors, but then if the large factor on the other side is this T-Rex is huge, it's literally the biggest factor in this case, but a single big factor can weigh out all the little ones. If it gets too complex, just say like, what's the single biggest advantage you have on this side? What's the single biggest advantage you have on this side? And compare them and decide which one has the edge. So this is leading very heavily on GM trust and GMs making rulings, basically making the judgment call. You can't just say, oh, okay, get a +1. You're having to make a call about, is this likely or unlikely to succeed? And I think that will be a challenge to some people. I think this will be a challenge to me when I actually come to run this with people. But I feel like it has real potential to tap into some of that FKR style of gameplay, where you've got a referee who kind of does have a lot of control over the game. But in doing that, you're able to focus on other things, because so much of what will be handled by rules and rigor and complexity is instead handled by a person. So we get to this point, we say, okay, fine, you have the edge. This is your last chance to change the plan. So if you said, no, you haven't got the edge, you still get a chance to change the plan and say, actually, no, then we'll run away. Otherwise, we roll. And if I've got the edge, I'll take the high die, which is 9, which would be yes, but. And then finally, the impact. So show the consequences of their action, honouring the established stakes, and move things forwards. So you've set the stakes already. So yes, but might mean that you succeed, but there's like a lesser version of the stakes applied to you. Okay, so that's it. So I know that felt like a bit of a rules dump, but this is it. And it's so important here. And we've got some guidelines for what happens on a failure, a success, or a mixed result. But we'll use that if we need it. So our ship is impounded. The Call of the Void. Why was it impounded? Can we ask that? Yeah, let's ask the stars. Why was it impounded? 7 and 9. The child veiled. So veiled is faith and deceit. So if we've been like, so learning, greed, deceit. So greed and deceit suggests that we've been like double crossed. Maybe we had like a third member of the crew that has double crossed us. And sort of like framed us for something, and now our ship has been impounded for this. So I rolled for a person, and I had 2 and 1, so a calculating traveller. So yeah, I think we had like our navigator who has betrayed us. Let's get their style just so I can picture this person. 5 and 5, overalls and wires. So maybe they literally like wired themselves into the navigation system. So this traitor has I'll need a name. The one thing this game does lack is a giant list of names. But this so this traitor has turned us in to the local authorities. Not turned us in, but like framed us for something. And they've run off with the money. Perhaps they've done this on behalf of someone else. So we're going to start in a starport. And what is the starport like that we are in? I've got 9 and 6. An exclusive farm. Interesting. So you know what? I'm picturing like this. I can't remember what these are called. These kind of like orbital colonies that are like a ring. It's not a ring world. So I'm picturing something like that. So it was exclusive. So exclusive doesn't necessarily mean like it has to be like high class. O'Neill cylinders, sorry. Thunder Ducky has said. So exclusive doesn't need to mean like it's like the wealthy. It could just be that it's exclusive, like maybe this is a place that grows food. And it's exclusive in the sense that you have to have like a membership. You can go there to stock up on food for free if you have like a membership to this place. And perhaps we were kind of led to believe we would be permitted, and then we were backstabbed by our betrayer. I'm not going to jump too far into the other modules, but in the planetary module we do have an agriculture table that creates some quite interesting results. So we have 2 and 7. So gene-modified krill is what they are growing here. So yeah, this place is growing krill that have been like gene-modified to, well, I guess to like be able to exist in like, maybe like without, well, I guess they exist in water. But I'm guessing these krill can like survive in like space conditions. Maybe they can just like float around in the vacuum, and you can buy these big tubes of this krill that can be kind of like made quite a nice protein source out in space. I really like this table because it all sounds terrible unless you roll really well. So when you get like some nice food, it's gonna feel good. Okay, so the ship's been impounded in this kind of farming orbital station. That's kind of like this O'Neill cylinder, like rounded with these almost like salmon farms. So it's got like these big water beds that are growing this krill, and it's on like a huge scale. But the ship's been impounded, but I guess we're still out and about. So I think we could try and get a job. Maybe we could just try and bust out the ship. So, you know what, I'm going to ask the stars. I'm going to say, so we're going to try and like sneak to where the ship is being stored, and we're going to look at the security, and I'm going to ask a general question of yes or no, like, does the security look good? And I think it's likely that the security is going to look good. 12, so yes, it looks very tight security. It's behind like a I guess this world must be quite secure because it would be like an obvious target for pirates, I suppose. So it's like it's off in some like distant dock. It would have a real difficult time trying to like bust it out. So I guess we have to do a job and like to get enough money to like pay the fine. So we're going to use the job roll. So we have 9 and 7. Pursue a relic. So someone on this starport is looking for someone that's going to pursue a relic. Let's find out who our kind of contact is. Now we could jump over to mercantile here because we do have we have traders. We have passengers. We have other like people we could roll up. But let's stick to our person and style. So who's recruiting for this job? 12 and 3, a professional smuggler. Okay, and their style is 12 and 8, denim and pouches. So they're a professional smuggler. I'm imagining like the double denim jeans and a denim jacket, with like a million different like, more pouches than like a Rob Liefeld character. Punish Jimble is saying like maybe their pouches are like a decoy, so they've got lots of little pouches that are just filled with like trivial things so that they can hide the real goods away. Is double denim a thing in like other countries? I feel like it's in the US, like it's not considered a faux pas to wear two denim items of clothing at once, but it was a big issue here for a while. So pursue a relic for a double denim smuggler. So where is this relic? It's presumably it's in the starport somewhere. Maybe he's going to take us somewhere to drop us. You know what? We're doing it. We're jumping over to the planetary module. I know I said I would stay in the Intergalactic, but I want to see if I want this relic. It feels weird that this relic would just be in a station somewhere. I'm thinking maybe this smuggler has maybe this smuggler is the one that's taken the relic. What is the relic? We need some guidance on that. So let's 4 and 6. The hand bowed. So the hand is creation, misdirection. Bowed is submission and mercy. So when I think like creation and submission, maybe it's like I'm imagining a robot, which is a little bit more wacky sci-fi than we're perhaps imagining. You know what? I'm going for it. So there's like an automaton. The relic is an automaton relic for a double denim smuggler. So the smuggler has gone away with this sort of relic of old robotic technology that people aren't able to reproduce, and the smuggler has gone off with it. And we've been told that we can have our ship back if we can retrieve this robot. Now, how exactly are they expecting us to get our get it without the ship? So will they let us take the ship to complete this job, assuming that there will be some kind of tracker or security? They will actually. And what's the security that they're gonna? What's their collateral basically? How are they gonna not just expect us to drive away? The Fang rooted. So the Fang is like hostility, and rooted is stability and plenty, but it's also like literally rooted. So I'm thinking maybe the ship they've planted like a limiter on the ship so that we can't use the ship's weapons. In fact, the ship's weapons have been taken in, and we can have them back when we come back with the relic. So we have a luxury lounge, but weapons, they're not just disarmed, they've been like, what's the word, removed. So we're going to have to chase this smuggler down. What's the name of this exclusive farm, this krill factory? There's a place near me called the Chill Factory, which is like a big ski slope. So the fact that it's the krill factory does kind of make me laugh. So I'm going to stick with that. So this is our job. That's the krill factory. We're allowed back in the ship. And I'm guessing they put some kind of tracker on as well. And do the people that run this krill farm, do they seem like they would have the means to chase us down? I think it's probably likely, because it seems like this would be quite a wealthy operation. I got an 8. So yes, but. So yes, they do seem like they would have the means to chase us down, but maybe they don't need to, because everyone that has membership to this farm, this exclusive farm, everyone that has like a subscription to go and get their krill topped up for free, those people are all kind of, they would like check in with local bulletin boards, and there will be jobs put out. So they would hire bounty hunters basically to come and get us. They wouldn't be sending out their own people. They'd send someone out to do that job for them. Okay, so we have our ship. Do we have like a lead on where they went? So I'm asking, do we have a lead? I think this must be likely. 11, yes. So there is a lead on this, and the lead is that they have headed to. They must have like left the system. So how does travel work? It's a good question. I was talking about this in a Discord server today about how we travel in space. Traveler tries to do it down to the second, like how long it takes to travel between two places. I kind of prefer just like a guideline, like it doesn't really matter. If it takes hours or weeks, that's what matters. It doesn't matter so much whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. For the purposes of the game, all that matters is like what kind of order of magnitude are we talking for the journey. So planet to orbit is hours, but it's really inefficient. Between satellites, takes hours. Between planets, takes weeks or months. Between stars, requires an advanced jump drive or a gate. So, is there a jump gate nearby? I'm going to say it's probably unlikely. Oh, I don't know. This is kind of a... It feels like this is actually quite a key destination for people. So I'm going to say it's kind of likely that there's some means of jumping around here. Oh, 7. So 7 means yes, but. So yes, there is a means of jumping here. But what's the catch? That's the stars. 9 and 10. The elder exiled. Authority and tradition, guilt and autonomy. So autonomy, it's making me think about like the AI of this jump gate. And authority, autonomy. So yes, but the AI of the jump gate has been compromised and is refusing to let anyone jump through. So that does create a problem. If the smuggler has jumped through the jump gate and the jump gate has since been compromised, we need to find somebody who can like interface with the jump drive. Now, where's that navigator that betrayed us? Maybe they are the only person who can get us through this because they had the wires. So I'm seeing them as kind of a techie person. So we need to find that backstabber that got our ship impounded in the first place, and we need to either convince them or otherwise get them to come and help us with this job, and then we'll call it even. So they must be in like another starport by now. So where are they? 11 and 9, a modern hub. So like the big hub of this area is a kind of a very modern kind of, well, modern for like this kind of slightly 70s feel that this game has. Lots of sleek white lines. It's a huge like orbital station. I'm guessing it's like another satellite of this planet. So it would take a number of hours to get there. What's this planet like? Let's just get a sense of what planet we're orbiting here. So it's a planet. The atmosphere is green microbes. Okay. Slightly scary. The landscape is toxic swamps. So it's some kind of like poison bog plague world down there. But for some reason, there's a number of orbital stations around here. Is the stuff on the planet related to the kelp that's being grown? The krill, sorry. Yes, but we'll investigate that another time. So yeah, we need to try and find this person who's betrayed us. So we leave the dock. We're operating without a navigator, but we are going to travel to this other satellite. We'll come up with a name for the new place. So 11 and 8. The council burning. So it's called the Bright Circle. It's literally like a white kind of ring shaped. Well, you know what? We've got some mega ships, and let's not get complicated. It's a white, sleek orbital hub, and when we get there, any problems getting through security when we get there? I'm guessing not, so I'm going to say it's unlikely. 2, no, there's no problems getting through security. And when we get to this modern hub, we're going to start asking around for a lead on the traitor that's put us in this situation. So we'll send Harlock out. Harlock's a drifter. They've probably got some contacts around here. Is Harlock able to get a lead on our traitor? We need a name for this. Like, who's this bastard that's like betrayed us? Harlock gets an 8. So have they got a lead? Yes, but so I said about we've got some impact guidelines. So if we're unsure what failure, success, or mixed should look like, we have some kind of guidelines here. So we can soften the impact. So we could say like, yes, we get like a bit of a clue, but it's not. We don't know where they are. We just know they are here. You could temper the good with bad. So it could say, yes, we know where they are, but they're somewhere secure, and it's going to be very difficult to get there. Or you could surprise with new information. So it could be that we, yes, we found them, and they're actually waiting for us. So they've already like arranged a meeting point. We are going to leave it there for tonight because we are approaching time. That is kind of the gist of this system. It relies a lot on making stuff up. So I found this when I ran Cosmic Highway a couple of weeks ago for some friends. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great system. It actually worked even better than I was expecting. A lot of the rules that I was like, I could change that. A lot of those rules actually turned out to be really good. So I absolutely recommend playing Cosmic Highway by the book. But because so much of the game is like making stuff up, and I did it with like no prep as well, which isn't necessarily the only way to do it, but it seems to be encouraged by this style, and it's kind of what I'm encouraging with this style. But when you go in with no prep, it's kind of exhausting because you're having to constantly think of stuff and having to constantly make things up as you go. And I would say you could do like a little bit of prep ahead of time, maybe prep a few places. The classic prep situations, not plot. So don't think about what the game's going to be, but maybe just like create a few locations and think of a few like interesting situations that are going on, just so there's always something firing off. But yeah, I hope that's been useful. If you did want to check that out, you can go to bit.ly/askthestars, and that will take you to the folder that has Intergalactic, Planetary, and Mercantile. And hopefully this week, maybe, it will have the more military themed one. As always, if you enjoyed this, you can find out more about my games at bastionland.com. And you can support these streams on patreon.com/bastionland. If you enjoy these streams, the podcast is back. I'm doing a new series of the podcast that's on anchor.fm/bastionland. We've had 2 episodes so far with Johan Noor and Ava Islam. And we've got 4 more coming up. But yeah, let me know if you do get to try out Ask the Stars. Even if you don't want to play it as it is, it's got some random tables. It's always good to have more of them. Let me know how you get on. And until next time, it's goodbye for now.